Hi, this is Anita with 5 Minutes with Art. One of my favorite artists by far is Vincent van Gogh. And, the question I'm asking, I guess asking all of you, is Vincent van Gogh, why the world can't get enough of him? And there's some reasons why I think that the world is so fascinated with him. If you looked on Google Trends or if you did a search on Google, a lot of times you would see Vincent van Gogh's name come up as one of the great artists. He's always up there, usually in the top two or three, because people are searching for him. They're fascinated by him. They want to know more about him and his story. I think part of it is because his life reads like a fiction. Here is a guy who, he spent time in asylums. He died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He really was sort of a tragic character during his lifetime. He, cut off his own ear. He, had mental problems. He, really was somebody whose life is very fascinating and interesting. But not only that is his own style of his artwork, his brush work, that breaks the rules. Like, he really had a unique style in his brush work. He broke the rules of the convention during the time. An area when realism and, still had a firm grip on European art. He chose expressionism over accuracy. And so, this is one reason why he appeals so much to the world today. He didn't paint what he literally saw. He paint how he saw it or how he felt. So there's a lot of emotion in it. Like, if you look at his paintings like The Starry Night, this really is considered one of the great masterpieces. But yet at the same time that, it's not really like, a night sky that's realistic. It's a night sky as he saw it. It's his perceived way that he saw it during the time. He has art that sort of speaks to outsiders, even to people that, at the time, people who maybe didn't understand him, even though at the time of his life, he failed as an art dealer, a teacher, a preacher. He failed in selling his art. He didn't sell him his art. He was an unsuccessful artist. He, didn't really find a place in the world. People didn't really like him. He was kind of considered a little bit oddball. He talked about his loneliness. He didn't really have a lot of friends. And, he was broke. He was unstable. And he was isolated. He was all of those things that maybe so many people feel today. So a lot of people may have a lot of compassion towards him. He had a legacy which actually grew with time. He's very well known because he only sold like one painting in his lifetime. But at the same time, his legacy grew over time. He now has a very, famous and popular museum in Amsterdam dedicated just to him and to his art. It's hard to see his art, in many places around the world because art has been harder to get. But it's very, very extremely popular. Museums that have it really prize having a piece of one of his works of art. And this is really thanks to his sister-in-law, Joan Bonner, that she's really the one who really understood the value of his art. 6 months after Van Gogh passed away, his beloved brother Theo had been supporting him, passed away. After Van Gogh died, his art all went to Theo, and of course then to Theo's widow, Joan Bonner. And so she's really the one that saw the value in this. She actually ended up moving back to Holland from Paris. She had a young child, that was, without a father. And she could have just said, who wants this art? And she could have just thrown it away, but she didn't. She saw the value of it, and she's the one who's really credited to helping make Van Gogh be as famous today. Still today, even for the Van Gogh Museum, the Van Gogh family is still part of that museum and, still very much active in preserving the legacy of Vincent van Gogh. The other thing that made Vincent van Gogh very popular, and this has again to do with his sister-in-law, was the power of the letter, where him and his brother wrote a lot of letters back and forth. She preserved them, she published them, she made sure that the world knew about them. They didn't really hide the fact of some of his issues and problems. In fact, they sort of embraced it in a way to show people this is what it was. And I think that a lot of people relate to Vincent van Gogh because he's a bit of a mirror for our own time. That maybe, here's somebody who's endured hardship, isolationism, and other things like that, but still at the same time, he's still considered a great artist. His story is kind of one of suffering and endurance and making it through. If you'd like to be able to read more about Vincent van Gogh and to be able to learn more about his life, I've written a blog post entitled Vincent van Gogh, Why the World Still Can't Get Enough. And we'll put a link in the description below so that if you'd like to be able to read more of that and see some of his artwork, you can actually read more about him. He truly is a wonderful and a fascinating artist, and someone whose life and legacy and art is worth studying and understanding. This is Anita from 5 Minutes with Art. We hope that you'll join with us, subscribe, and be part of our community. We truly do appreciate those people who are members of our community. We want you to know that we appreciate you.